Welcome back to the Everything Property Podcast. Today's guest plays an integral role in your investment property journey. He's been a property manager for over 16 years across 2 states, or even 3, depending if you're counting on how far away the Central Coast is from Sydney. And now he's running the show over at Ray White, Taylor and Partners in Darlinghurst. Corey Rotunno-Grant, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm well, David. How are you?
I'm very good. Look, thanks for coming on. Very patient with us at the start there with some technical difficulties. As I explained off air, and for those that are listening and watching, we're sort of bringing through our guests through the second foundation of the Everything Property Podcast, which is the people building the team and the people that they meet along the way. One of those people, one of the most important people outside of the bank and your mortgage broker and stuff, is actually your property manager who looks after your property. But yeah, I thought we'd get you on, speak to you today about all things property management, so people can get their head around how it works, their choice to hire and get a property manager working for them, and all those kind of stuff. You've been in this space for, is it 16 years?
Yeah, 16 years.
16 years. You've done some work in Sydney, Sunny Coast, and up at Gold Coast.
Yep.
So you're well versed in all those kinds of stuff. But I guess what I want to start with is talk to us a little bit about your story. You're still quite young. I'll give it to you. Still quite young. So how you moved sort of out of high school into working life and into your first role, McDonald's first, Bondi Junction.
That's right.
Back in the day, and then into Bressick Whitney. Talk to me through those days.
Well, I thought I had a career at Macca's, if I'm honest.
Yep.
I climbed that corporate ladder, if you say.
Yeah.
And I didn't even envision working in real estate, when I was 18, 19, 20. And then one day I just woke up and decided I wanted to try real estate. And I knocked on a few doors and, I didn't have my driver's license. I didn't have my certificate of registration. Yeah. I had no experience.
How old are you at this stage, though?
I was 20.
20, working at Macca's. Because there is a few tiers of, like, Macca's management and stuff like that. You can work your way out. You can make some decent money.
Correct.
Okay.
So, I was earning $43,000 a year on a full-time salary at Macca's, and decided, I need to do something more with my life, and decided to look into real estate, and went for interview after interview after interview. Being a male, not many people wanted a male receptionist back in those days. Yep. We're talking 2007, and it was difficult. Okay. And one afternoon I was on Seek, and a job came up through Goff, and literally I had a phone call.
Goff Recruitment.
Yeah.
Oh, they placed me as well.
Yeah.
Who did you have?
I think it was Ella. It was such a long time ago. I think it was Ella.
Yeah. Shout out to Darren if he ever listens to this. Yeah.
And with literally that I had that call, and I had an interview within 24 hours with my now boss, Peter Taylor, and pretty much got hired on the spot, which was a shock. I walked into their office and I was in awe because, Bressick Whitney at the time, well, I didn't even know who Bressick Whitney was, coming from the east. And I walked into that office and I was just...
Where was the office?
It was under the, the alarm building where next to the Coca-Cola sign.
Yep.
So it was in that building at the time.
Wow.
And it was decked out. It looked beautiful. I'd gone to all these smaller, well-known agencies, and it was just a very different vibe. And, I sat down and met with Pete, and literally walked out of that interview and I was like, I'm not sure if I got that.
Yeah, okay.
And, jumped back on the train from King's Cross back to Bondi Junction, and I got the phone call from Goff, and they were like, you've got the job. And I was just shocked. And, I started probably about a week later, and at that stage, I wanted to get into sales. I had it in my head, sales was where I wanted to be. And I was, Peter Taylor's right-hand man, I guess. And, I was answering the phones.
Was he a sales rep at the moment, or was he running property management?
So he started Bresic Whitney Property Management from scratch. So he purely has a PM background, and he kind of he mentored me, and I just fell in love with property management, and yeah, he, I guess, carried my career from being a junior admin assistant up to a team leader before he left and opened up Ray White Taylor and Partners.
Wow, okay, because you were there for a very long time. You were there for 7 years, which is an incredible stint for anyone working anywhere. I think 7 years is enough to sort of build up a really good understanding. You worked up through the ranks, which is cool. And then you decide to move from Bresic to quite another well-established real estate agency for a bit too after that.
Yeah, so during I guess Pete's departure of Bresic, I'd moved to the Central Coast, and the idea for me moving to the Central Coast was, I'd buy a property. It was a lot more cheaper to buy up there than was. No, I didn't.
Okay.
I'll get to that point very soon. Very soon. And I was commuted for about 9 months, and I was earning an exceptional salary at Bresic. Yeah. And I just couldn't do the commute anymore. Like, it was taking me 3 to 5 hours a day back and forth, and decided to go and work at McGrath.
So hang on, it's taking you to about hour 45 to 2 hours each day? Man, that used to be my commute from Camden to the city. Crazy that you were going from being able to get from the Central Coast to Sydney. Okay, so then you sort of went, look, commute's a bit too much after 9 months. You move into McGrath up there too?
Correct.
Okay, and how was that experience for you?
Look, it was great. I've made a lot of lifelong friends. One who now owns a Ray White office herself, who I'm meeting with next month, just to collaborate and work on some ideas. What's working with her office? What's working with ours? Yeah. But it was very different. Completely different market to what Sydney is, and different
tenants and renters, right?
Very much so.
Up the coast.
And clientele as well. The landlords are very different. There are a lot of mum and dad landlords as well. So, people were paying $400 a week for a 3 to 4 bedroom home, and that was barely covering someone's mortgage. Yeah. So when there were issues with the repairs, it was a lot more difficult to get those things fixed. Mm-hmm. And so you had the same problems as what you had in Sydney, but
$400 a week's like a studio.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct. So landlords were struggling in terms of having to pay, $2,000 to get something repaired when their return was so low. So we had to balance that, and it ended up unfortunately with a lot of tribunal cases.
Okay, so you're well experienced with the tribunal and that process. I'm sure we can get into that a little bit later. But okay, so different clientele, different renters, a bit of a different market. You're there for almost 4 years.
Yep.
And then you move and you do a little brief stint at the agency.
Yes, on the Gold Coast.
Yep.
So majority of my family's from the Gold Coast.
Okay.
I would go up there literally couple of times a year. And then, one day it just clicked in my head and I was like, I love it here. Like, it's amazing. The area is it's just lovely. Like, I felt like it was summer 24/7. But
selling it to me, man.
What you don't realize is every time I went there, it was during peak holidays. It was busy. Mm-hmm. Everyone was up there visiting. So during the quieter months, it was unfortunately dead. There wasn't a whole lot to do.
Yeah, okay.
And there was a 27-year-old at the time. I was just like, there's really not a whole lot for me up there. And then my family decided to abandon me and all move. One went to Melbourne. Dad flew to Italy, and I was like, well, why am I here? So I reached back out to Bresic and was offered a role with them and worked with them throughout COVID.
Okay, so you come back to Sydney after a little Gold Coast sort of sprint.
Yep.
All right, awesome. And then after you do a couple more years at Bresic, and then you find yourself where you are now, which is Ray White, Taylor and Partners, Darlinghurst. Tell me about those last couple of years, sort of COVID. That would have been a very challenging time for property managers, no?
It was. So at the time when COVID first hit and we went into that first lockdown and we all had to work from home, we weren't set up for, the capability of working from home. We weren't using all the cloud-based software that we've got now. So we were still working on a server. So we all had to bring our computers home, our screens home, and the poor sales agents all got kicked off the server because we needed the server for our software.
Yeah.
And it was hard. And we had to navigate between tenants who unfortunately couldn't afford to pay their rent, and being in Darlinghurst and the inner city, most of those tenants left the country. So the market just dropped dramatically. And in order for us to try and secure tenants, not to, I guess, a good and high return, but just to get good quality tenants, we had to spend, our clients had to spend quite a lot of money to bring their properties up to standard.
Yep.
Which was, it was a good thing, I see, because, we were giving people jobs in terms of, having properties painted, putting in new kitchens, all that sort of stuff, new carpet. And I was able to, I guess, transform my entire portfolio from, it wasn't a bad portfolio, but I was able to bring it up to a more modern standard.
Oh,
and
okay.
Now they're starting to reap those benefits now that the prices are coming back up.
Yeah, now there's 463,000 migrants headed back to, just came to Australia in the last 12 months. So no doubt in and around the east and city, which is where you guys are based, I'm sure a lot of your properties are, makes it very interesting for you now as head of property.
I'm not going to lie, it's incredibly hard. So it's a conversation that we have weekly, if not daily, in terms of, what are we pricing properties at? Because, what we think may be expensive, we're getting, 20 to 30 groups through. And then what we're thinking we've priced right, we're getting, maybe one or two groups through. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster the last 12 months.
Interesting, but great experience because, you're going through those different real estate cycles. You have that under your belt now, and like people coming into the market in the last year, maybe you not have seen that pre-COVID and COVID bubble and know everything that happened. So probably leads into my first question is that, people looking to buy or have purchased a property, there's two ways that you can manage that property. One is you can self-manage that property, or you can get a property manager. So where would you see the value of a property manager? You've touched on a few things, but where would you see sort of where owners would get bang for buck when they're using a property manager?
Well, I think we've all seen those stories on, I guess, A Current Affair where a landlord self-manages a property, the property gets trashed, people don't pay rent, and it takes them months, if not years, to get rid of those tenants. Whereas, if you do have a property manager who is looking after your property, they're completing inspections, a minimum of twice a year. Legally, we can go through 4 times a year.
Yep.
But we're able to see firsthand exactly how that person's looking after the property. We also meet those prospective tenants before they move in. So, someone could look amazing on paper. They could, present themselves really well, but they may not be the right fit. And we're able, especially with I guess the length of time that I've been doing property management, we're able to see through that, I guess, BS and tell our clients, look, you've got this applicant who is gold, everything, they tick all the boxes, but then you've got this applicant who, they might be earning, $50,000 a year less than what this person is, but, they're polite, they're not pushy, they're not asking for every single little item to be repaired, they're not asking for a brand new property. They've had excellent references come through from their real estate. We're not dealing with someone from Facebook Marketplace who could have friends doing rental references for them.
Oh.
And we see it all the time. We pick up new managements all the time where things like this have happened.
Yeah.
And the first thing that we do is we go in and inspect those properties and meet those people and give our advice and I guess our 2 cents to the owner. 9 times out of 10, it's fine. But there is always going to be that 1% that, we're like, oh, look, I don't think that they're the right fit for you.
So do you have instances, I know I've had it as well, where the property manager presents a couple of cases to the owner? Would you say the owner's focused on more so who's going to pay the highest rent or who's going to look after the property the best?
It's mixed.
Yeah.
It really is mixed. So I guess we've got a lot of investors who are dollar driven, but then we do have a lot of investors who they want the best quality tenant to live in their property, and if that means that it's at asking price or if that means it's below asking price, they'll take our advice and our word for it. So if we've got someone who's applied at $850 but the property is $800 a week, and everything ticks all the boxes for the person for $800 a week, and we like that person's built a really good rapport with us, we'll tell the owner, look, we really like this person. Yeah. However, we've got this person at $850. What do you want to do?
Okay, so you present it to them. It's kind of like an offer on a property. These are both the cases. I've actually taken a tenant on the property manager's recommendation. I think it was like $15 or $20 a week less.
Yep.
And that was purely because they just presented more. They had a dog, which I was like totally cool with. The property that I was renting has a backyard. But yeah, they just the intel I got from the property manager was that they are going to be a better tenant, look after the property. And since then, I've never heard from them. They do the inspection. I get the little report, look through, no issues. Not one of those tenants that wants everything changed and fixed and that. So you're digging in and giving a few tips to our audience if they are renters on potentially how to get on the property manager's good side. Yep. Is there anything else I can do to bolster up an application? I've been through paces before where there's 12 or 15 people that come through the door. What would you say are, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but what are some of your top green flags and what are some of your red flags in terms of when you're looking for that tenant to present to a property manager, to a property owner?
So ideally, I guess our job is to try and get the property leased as quickly as possible for the owner to mitigate their loss. So I guess my advice would be for a tenant who I guess has green flags is someone who submits all their supporting documentation. We're not having to chase them for all that supporting documentation. We don't want their entire life story, but if we need photo ID, if we need bank statements, if we need pay slips, if we need pet references, all that sort of stuff, we don't want to be chasing that. If we've got someone who's got all of that information and they're perfect, well, they're our pick. Yep. Whereas there could be someone who is offering $50 a week more, but they're not willing to share what they do for work, or they're not giving us.
Really, people apply and they won't.
They do. They'll submit their bank statement and
just link the OnlyFans. What are they talking about?
They'll literally just give us their bank statement.
Yeah, okay.
And we're like, well, what is it that you do? Like, how? Okay, yep, you might have this in savings now, but what happens when those savings go?
Yeah.
So having all of your, I guess, ducks in a row, having all that information so that we can present that to the owner is definitely a green flag. In terms of a red flag, it's not providing that information.
Opposite.
Being arrogant. We see a lot of people who are arrogant who just think that they don't have to provide us with that information. At the end of the day, it's $1 million property that someone's moving into.
Yep.
It's just like applying for a bank loan. Like, would you not provide that information to your bank?
Yep.
Is the bank going to approve your loan without proof that you can actually afford the property? And a lot of the time it's got to do with and I would hope my peers do this, is giving honest rental reviews.
Yep.
So getting those references back from those agencies in a prompt manner would help and does help getting that application approved.
Is it difficult if say you've got 5 applications up your sleeve, you've got the property say rented, listed online for $850, but none of those applications, have you ever had it that none of those applications come back at anywhere near $850? They're all sort of $800s. You then have to go back to your property owner and sort of adjust their expectations.
Happens all the time.
Really?
Yep.
Especially in sort of inner city and stuff like that.
Happens all the time. Not all. Well, it does happen quite a lot.
Yep.
Not so much right at this point in time. Not like the past couple of weeks. But it has happened and it does happen, and that's a reflection on the price. So. If someone is applying, if majority of those applicants are applying at $800 a week, it means they don't see value at $850. So the market dictates what the property is worth. So if we're getting 5 applications at $800 a week, well, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, they think it's worth $800.
This is an interesting topic because I see this happens a lot on social media. People are always really quick to jump in and complain and say, the landlord put my rent up $200 a week. Now that happened at the end of COVID and stuff like that. I understand, but what's your thoughts around the landlord if the landlord can put up my rent $200 a week and get someone in it? What are your thoughts around that and that tenant that's sort of, just had their rent increased? Do you think that that's market rent then? And they've been paying under market rent? Do you think it's unfair? Do you think it's okay to do? What are your thoughts about that? Because obviously, if you're my tenant and you're in there paying $800 a week, the market's jumped. Say it's up to $1,000 a week for a 2-bedder. A lot of people see it unfair of me to put my rent up to $1,000 a week, but that's what the market will pay. So do I look after you and I say, it's only $820 now, or what's your thoughts on something like that?
So. This is literally a conversation that I've been having this week because we're in the middle of doing our rent reviews at the moment. So our job as a property manager is to tell our clients or our landlords where their property currently sits within this market. And we don't push and say, hey, you can get $1,000 a week. Let's increase the rent to $1,000 a week. Dave, if you're my tenant and you were looking after the property, paying your rent on time, you weren't causing any headaches, you were reporting repairs, which is what you're meant to do, but you weren't, requesting compensation for, a window that wasn't closing or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
We would have that conversation with the owner and say, look, yeah, you could get $1,000 a week, but do you really want to lose a good quality tenant over it? Because if you lose that tenant over $200 a week, you're then going to have a vacant property.
Yep.
You're going to have to pay letting fees.
Yep.
You're going to have to pay marketing fees. And potentially, depending on the quality of the property, you're probably going to have to do work to the property as well.
Okay.
So the way around it is, and most of those owners will take on that feedback, and they may turn around and say, "Look, can we just try the $200 a week increase?"
Sneaky. Okay. Yeah.
But I would always say to that owner, and I'm transparent with our tenants as well, and I basically just tell them, it is open to negotiation. So if you want to bring forward an offer, I can't guarantee the owner will agree to it. Yep. But if you want to bring forward an offer, I can take that to the owner.
Do you tell the tenant? Do you say to the tenant, look, a market rate is where the market's at? Is this
correct?
You present that to him. Say, look, the market rate's at about $1,000 a week. The owner is thinking about increasing the rent or getting a new tenant in. Do you ask for an offer? How does that work?
So it's more. So one thing that we like to do, and I think we do it differently to what other agencies do, is rather than just shooting off an email saying your rent's going to $1,000 a week, we'll call that tenant up or that client up and say, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, unfortunately, we've had a discussion with the owner. The property's worth X, Y, Z. Unfortunately, they are looking at increasing it to XYZ or $1,000 a week. However, you have been such a good tenant. We really do not want to lose you as a tenant. have a chat with your partner or have a think about it over the weekend, see what else is available in the market at the moment, and come back to me with an offer, and I'll take that to the owner and see what the owner has to say.
Yeah, okay. Very fair and just, and I think it's in the discretion of the owner say, look, there's a little bit more there. Maybe they've offered 850, 875. Okay, look, I'm happy with that. Keep them in and not go through the reletting. There's a calculation you'll need to do with if it's empty for 3 weeks, 3 weeks lost rent, then you're paying 1.1 weeks rent for the reletting fee and those kinds of things. What's your opinion on? And I know it's been talked about, especially in Victoria. What's your opinion on rental caps and rental bidding and ruling that out? What are your thoughts on that as a property manager?
So rental bidding, it's a hotly contested topic in my office. It's a no-no. Like I definitely don't agree with it. So
you don't agree with going back and forth to tenants, or you don't agree with if the property is advertised for 850, I can put in an application for say 875.
So I think. So I'm okay with someone who wants to offer more, but I don't feel like we as property managers should be engaging in that conversation and saying, hey, we've got an application at 800. Would you bring your offer up to 850 or 875? I just don't think that's very ethical. We have advertised the property at $800 a week. So I'm not. I don't believe in it. I just don't think it's right and just. But if a tenant wants to offer more, that's their prerogative. Doesn't mean that they're going to get the property. So that's one thing I really want to make clear is that just because someone offers more doesn't mean that they're going to get the property. Yeah,
okay. Interesting. So if you're more than welcome in your thoughts, you're more than welcome to advertise more than a listing price. Doesn't mean you will get it. It'll depend on your application. But you're definitely against. And it sounds, I get you, because it's also that thing of like, is there actually someone you're bidding against, or is it just the property manager? Same thing when you're going to buy a house, right? You have this thing where it's like, is there actually someone going to pay $880 a week, or you're just trying to bring me up from say $820 what I've advertised, what I've put in my application for? So it's like, it's a bit unethical. You put your best foot forward in your first offer, and then you sort of wait for that property manager to come back to you with your application.
Correct. Ideally, would like to stamp out that whole, real estate agents are like car salesmen. Like we're not here to steal all your money and to try and get the best offer as possible for our clients. Ideally, we want the best quality tenant, and we want to mitigate our owners' loss. But I definitely wouldn't be, pushing and telling someone, hey, we've got someone at 875. Even if we do, I just don't think it's the right thing to do. In terms of rental caps, I'm intrigued to see what the government is going to propose there. I think it may make my job a lot easier in terms of issuing those increases, because having those conversations with tenants who we are increasing, and we're increasing rents by $100, $200 a week. They're very difficult conversations to have because most of the time you're catching that person off guard, and that person is struggling with the costs of living at the moment. And, where are they going to find this extra $100 to $200 a week? At the end of the day, that's what the property is worth. Unfortunately, on the back of COVID with immigration, there's just no stock available, and those prices are now rising because of that. We're not building enough, especially in the inner city.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I think we're going to come to a very interesting, given the amount of people coming here wanting rental accommodation, and then the amount of what's getting built and what's available. It's definitely hitting it's going to hit a point where, there's going to be a break or something like that. Look, do you have any, you've been a property manager for 16 years. Surely you've got some horror stories, or what would you say is the worst thing you've seen in your time, or some of the worst things you've seen in your time when maybe you've done the inspection or something like that, but what would you say is the worst thing you've seen in your time as a property manager with 16 years experience?
So one of the most, horrific experiences I've encountered is I I had a 1-bedroom unit in Chippendale, and it was part of a serviced apartment complex. And I think it was about 12 years ago now. One of our sales agents was selling the property, and I was away camping, and just for a glimpse, I had a bit of a phone reception, and had a phone call from the sales agent saying, "Hey, Corey, I've just opened the front door, and there's just a massive pool of blood." So he quickly closed the door, and quickly closed the door, told all the prospective buyers, "Look, the open's been cancelled." Called the police, called me, and I was like, I'm not in Sydney. I don't know what the story is. I don't know what's happening. The tenants were going through a breakup at the time, and they were in the process of vacating. And it was a furnished unit. Yeah. And came back to Sydney, found out the whole story, and unfortunately there was a bit of a lover's tiff, and she was leaving him, and he decided that he wanted to end her life and his, and it was a massive debacle, and I unfortunately had to be involved in getting all that cleaned up. And
so did they have a fight, or did they was this like a murder?
It wasn't a murder. Okay. Attempted murder.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It was someone known to the media as well. So there's an article online about it. Oh. But she was obviously scared for her life. Yep. She scaled the balcony to try and get out of the property. It wasn't great.
Holy shit.
So I had to get the forensic cleaners through, because at the end of the day, we still needed to sell the property. I had to do an exit inspection, get rid of all this
blood?
Pretty much, yes.
Oh my god. All right. I was expecting like you come in and someone's taken a poo on the bathroom, on the lounge room floor, but that is crazy. I don't think that'll ever be topped. Holy shit.
If anything, nothing like that has ever happened to me, but this has.
Just one.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And wow, I'm taken back by that. That's huge. What would you say? And what a sort of note to end on. But to wrap up, I usually ask for a golden nugget or a useful bit of information that you haven't told any on any podcast before, or that you could share at least with our audience, that when we're listening to when they're thinking about property managers and property management, what would be your golden nugget or key takeaway for everyone listening today?
Definitely interview your property manager when you are looking for one, because unlike, I guess, a sales agent, you have a short-term relationship with the sales agent. With a property manager, you've got a long-term relationship with them. So you're going to want to like that person. You may not agree with them 24/7, but who does in every relationship? Yep. So I guess my point would be, really get to know your property manager when you are in that process of choosing someone, because they're going to be your eyes and ears. You want to be able to trust them. You want to, be able to call on them at your beck and call, but you want them to be available for you. I've got clients who will call me and tell me about their children. They'll tell me about. I had one call me yesterday to tell me she was going for lunch, and I was like, thanks. Are you inviting me with you? But no, thank you. And that was literally the call. So it's
cute. Were they older?
She is.
Yeah, I got that vibe.
She's one of my favorites too.
Oh, that's so cute.
So it's about building that relationship with that person, because you're going to be working with them for a while. So you want to like that person. That would be, I guess, my little bit of advice in terms of, property management isn't just a transaction. For a lot of investors, it can be, but for I guess your mum and dad investors, you've got an emotional attachment to your property. You want someone who actually cares, and yeah.
Brands don't lease houses; people do.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Corey, thanks for coming on the Everything Property Podcast. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All good.